Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Having a Martha Home the Merry Way, 31 Days to a Clean House and a Satisfied Soul, by Sarah Mae. Narrated by C.S.E. Cooney. Foreword. This book is how I met my best friend. She's the one who wrote it, but 5 years ago, when she released pieces of it as a bit of a pamphlet ebook, I read it for no real reason other than I needed to do something. Cleaning my house was one of the somethings. You've been there, right? My guess is you're there right now, since you're listening to this very minute. Among the things bidding for my attention at that time in my own life was a request from our church to lead a women's Bible study group. I was in a bit of a dry season, which led me to a really deep conversation with myself that went something like this. I'm feeling uninspired right now, and my house is a wreck, I tell you. But if I lead a study on cleaning, then I'll actually be forced to follow through with it. Those who lead are forced to do. If there were a prize for super spiritual reasons for doing things, I would absolutely not have even made it through a preliminary round. But since they asked, and since a friend of mine told me about Sarah's project's 31 Days to Clean, I submitted the class proposal and ordered the book afterward. Uninspired people often don't do their homework. When I actually downloaded the ebook, I realized that my best-laid plan needed to be adjusted something fierce. I didn't know that ebooks are typically not nearly as long as standard printed books, and here I just signed up to lead a 14-week study. The title alone, 31 Days to Clean, should have tipped me off that I would come up short on material if I'd actually bothered to do the math. But then again, pertinent things like timing and pre-planning weren't exactly on my unmotivated radar. I freaked out for a day, and then figured that since I wasn't inspired, maybe if I asked the Lord, He'd give me a nugget to fill up the rest of the time. And He did. I used parts of Sarah Mae's ebook in conjunction with some of my own Bible study on the why behind the Mary and Martha challenges, and something incredible happened in that group. Women were changed. What began as a kick in the pants to do the laundry and wipe down the baseboards turned into a refocusing of a room full of women who had all lost their way somewhere in the midst of the mundane. The instructions they were reading weren't just a call to action, to ruthless purging in hopes of seeing the floor of their closets again. They were an invitation to explore the why and the how together. I remember thinking to myself in the midst of that study, if I ever wrote a book and it changed people, I'd sure want to know. So, even though I didn't know her personally, I emailed Sarah Mae just to tell her, to encourage her, and to let her know that somewhere in the midst of cleaning closets and writing mission statements, a whole group of women unlocked passions for their homes and families and friends, parts of their lives that had collected some cobwebs over the years. I never expected to hear back from her, but the Lord had plans for this woman and me, and He used this book to start them. What began as a project to get her own heart in order has now turned into this full book. Over the past several years, Sarah has fine-tuned the projects, missions, and motivations within these pages. She has dug deeper in her soul, and the Lord has unlocked new content that I believe will move you into the experience I had with those women years ago. It's time to get going, girls. Grab a friend, grab a hand, and grab a mop. We've got some tidying up to do. We may start clearing off counters and floors, but in the end, I think what we will find is rearranged hearts. So, as you listen to this book and explore the Mary inside of you, the one who lounges at the feet of guests and loves well, and the Martha who is on the move and gets stuff done, I think you will find that the cobwebs you most enjoy removing are the ones in your soul. Logan Wolfram, author, speaker, and host of Loom Ministries. Gentle Homemaking. An Introduction. I used to think that if my home was clean, I was a good homemaker. Over the years, as I've reflected on my life and have recalled memories of growing up, I've come to the conclusion that it is not a clean house that defines good homemaking, but rather a warm, inviting place that is filled with love. As a matter of fact, I would prefer to get rid of the word good altogether and replace it with gentle. I want to cultivate the art of gentle homemaking, which is the ability to be gentle and kind with ourselves in the process of making and keeping a home, while being gentle and kind to those around us. It's so easy to beat ourselves up, as well as cast blame on those closest to us, isn't it? We are quick to condemn ourselves and our efforts when things don't work out the way we envisioned. And once we feel frustrated with ourselves, it's a natural progression to accuse those around us. Our husbands and children can so easily get the brunt of our own feelings of inadequacy. I have often accused myself of being a homemaking failure. But you know, the only thing those condemning voices do is paralyze us from getting on with our lives, trusting God in our weaknesses, and moving forward in faith. When we can move forward without the condemnation of our sometimes meager efforts, we can become better, gentler homemakers and lovers of others. Now, as to the actual chaos and practical business of homemaking, I have found that loving others and creating peace happens when there is less mess. When I can't walk from the bedroom door to my child's bed without stepping on something, there is chaos. When I walk into the kitchen and it's too messy to make a nutritious meal, who wants to cook in a mess? My family misses out on a good meal prepared by me. When I get up in the morning and can't find something to wear because I didn't do the laundry again, I feel out of sorts and cranky. Or I'm late for an appointment because I have to search high and low for something I can throw on to make me presentable. The point is, when we have less chaos in the house, via a mess, we have less chaos in our souls. And when we have less chaos in our souls, we have more energy and capacity to love. How does a clean-ish home love others well? Love can be, and usually is, very practical. When I make sure I have clothes for my kids to wear, I have loved them practically. When I can get into the kitchen and cook good meals, I have loved my family practically. When I can extend a spur-of-the-moment invitation to a friend who needs to talk, and the surroundings are inviting, I have loved her practically. Can we love our family and others who come into our home if everything is in a jumble? Of course. This book isn't a legalistic do exactly as I say or else approach, because I know firsthand that a messy home doesn't define who we are. I am simply offering possible ways to add more serenity and minimize the disarray in our homes. My goal with this book and with my life is not to worry about being a homemaker who rocks at cleaning, but rather resolve to be a homemaker who is kind and gentle and has a quiet soul and an available home. Maybe you want that as well? Let's do that. Let's journey together in learning how to quiet our souls, love well, and care for our homes practically. Why would a woman who doesn't like cleaning write a book about cleaning? Simply because I wanted to encourage women in the life-giving beauty of homemaking without the guilt involved. There are enough voices out there telling us to just do it. I am writing from the perspective of a woman who isn't a natural cleaner, but who wants to persevere in the traditions of homemaking. I do not believe homemaking is a dying art. Rather, it is a time-tested skill that, when cultivated, creates a womb-like environment where life is nourished. At its heart, having a Martha home the Mary way is really about just that, the heart. It is about releasing any personal guilt and shame you are carrying and embracing the truth that your good enough has nothing to do with your cleaning abilities. Many of us need to hear that we don't have to get it all together to be good and loving. Our worth begins when we find our identity in the one who says, "By a single offering he has perfected for all time those who are being sanctified." Hebrews chapter 10, verse 14, English Standard Version. I love the freedom that comes from knowing I am already, from eternity's perspective, perfect and complete for all time. I don't have to do better or be better. I just need to walk faithfully with my God as He molds me. And so do you. You can keep and care for your home one step at a time, however imperfectly. You wear imperfect flesh, but you have a perfect soul if you know Him. The blood covers the ugly. If you struggle with maintaining your house, you get overwhelmed, and you wish you had a maid. I'm praying for one for you. Don't let those feelings define you or get you stuck. Give them to God, and walk in His steps as He goes before you. I am in this with you, and together, with Him and our hearts set on eternity, we can persevere. What does it mean to have a Martha house the Mary way? Such a fun play on words, isn't it? I wish it were my idea, but I can't take the credit. Before I wrote the first edition of this book, I had taken readers through a 31 Days to Clean blog series in which the biblical sisters Mary and Martha were not included. It was just me, offering encouragement to my readers before getting to the business of cleaning. However, when I decided to turn the blog series into an e-book, I asked my readers to help me come up with a subtitle. Beth Buster brilliantly came up with Having a Martha House the Mary Way. In the original ebook, I had meshed everything together, but Kristen Slade encouraged me to make the Mary and Martha challenges separate from the main entry. These generous women helped shape the book into the inspiring resource you are listening to now. Thank you both so much. And now that subtitle, slightly tweaked, has become the title of this updated edition. The Story of Mary and Martha. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed Him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to His teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to Him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42, English Standard Version. As I have studied the interactions between Mary and Martha, I have come not only to appreciate differences in personalities, but also to love the differences that make all of us who we are. Some of us relate to Martha, the industrious, hard-working woman who is taking care of business, sometimes to the detriment of relationships. Some of us relate to Mary, the woman who would rather sit and be with the company than help with the work. There are admirable things about both of these women, but as we examine the story more closely, we can see how wise Mary's choices were. Let's look together. Just for fun, I decided to profile Mary and Martha based on the accounts where they are mentioned. In Luke chapter 10, as well as John chapter 11, verses 1 through 44, and John chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. The profiles I've drawn up, though based on what we're told in the Bible, are expansions of my own perceptions of their personalities, so please keep that in mind. Martha. It is a widely held belief that Martha is the older sister. It seems as though she has taken on the role of mother to her siblings, Mary and Lazarus, since no living parents are mentioned. She takes care of business, but it's evident that the weight of her family responsibilities is taking a toll on her. But that doesn't stop her. She is strong, keeps busy, and doesn't have time to mince words. She is bold, but sometimes forgets herself and doesn't always filter her responses. Martha doesn't seem to conform to the expectations of the culture where women are submissive and quiet and know their place. She says what she thinks and can be demanding. She also knows when it's safe to be herself. She knows who Jesus is and has great faith in him. But she is also troubled and anxious because she is the caretaker of the family. It hasn't quite sunk into her heart that God has promised and can be trusted to provide for them. Martha's key verses. Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." Luke chapter 10, verses 41 through 42, English Standard Version. Jesus said to Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." John chapter 11, verses 25 through 27, English Standard Version. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." John chapter 11, verse 39, English Standard Version. Mary. Mary, the apparent younger sister, is quiet and patient and exhibits great self-control. She wants to learn and ponders what she hears. She understands what it means to be in the presence of Jesus, and she doesn't take it for granted. Mary allows herself to be vulnerable, and she is filled up inside with emotion, which she releases at the proper time. She is wise and faithful, and she knows what really matters. Her heart is laid bare, and she doesn't care who sees, because she just wants Jesus. Mary's key verses. Mary sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Luke chapter 10, verse 39, English Standard Version. Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." Luke chapter 10, verses 41 through 42, English Standard Version. Martha went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here, and is calling for you." And when Mary heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit. John chapter 11, verses 28 through 29, and verses 32 through 33, English Standard Version. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of perfume. John chapter 12, verse 3, English Standard Version. I can't wait to meet these women in heaven one day. What a joy it will be to truly get to know them. Here's the lovely thing we learn from John's Gospel. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. John chapter 11, verse 5, emphasis added. That fact is evident through all of these scripture snapshots, both in Jesus' words and his actions toward them. Jesus loved these women. He loved their whole family. And so it is with us. We don't have to have a certain right personality to be loved. Jesus loves us as we are. But one way he shows his love to us is to uncover us, because he sees into the deep places where our wounds and worries are hidden. He knows each one of them, and he wants us to be free from their grip and be whole. As we go through these next 31 days, I want you to love who you are, and yet be able to let Jesus into the hard places. I want you to sit with him and let him heal you, so you can be whole. This is why there are Mary and Martha challenges. First, we get our hearts right before the Lord, and then we can tackle the practical business. So yes, let's work toward having a Martha-like home, but let's do it the Mary way, with our hearts focused first on Jesus. May we begin each day with this prayer. My choice is you, God, first and only. Psalm 16, verse 5, the Message Bible. My story. It was dark, and we were in the car outside of an ice cream shop. Tears were fresh on my cheeks. My sister-in-law, Renee, and I had set out to pick up some milk, but more was to come out of that trip than picking up a few gallons of dairy products. I was crying because my heart hurt deeply. The feelings of not being a good enough wife were eating me up, and I didn't know what to do. I told my sister-in-law that I thought my husband, Jesse, would rather be married to someone else, someone better, who was good at cleaning. I have this friend, I said through my tears, who gets up early, is efficient, and is so good at cleaning and getting things done. I'm sure Jesse wishes I was like her. I'm such a failure. As Renee began to speak life-giving truth to me, my mind raced, trying to rewind the events that had brought me to this point of brokenness and disappointment in myself. An inclination toward messy, plus babies and aprons. Nearly all of my childhood, after my parents divorced, I lived with my dad and stepmom. My stepmom cleaned everything except my room. I never even washed a dish. In fact, I didn't do my own laundry until I was 14 and living with my mom. Under my dad's roof, I was expected to keep my room fairly clean. If I let it get too messy, I would find a note from him on my bed saying something like, You may not go to Young Life or do anything until this room is clean. Love, Dad. He rarely came down hard on me, but he did want me to take care of my room. When I moved in with my mom, it was a whole new ball game. I could keep my room in whatever state I liked. My mom didn't care about it at all. I had freedom. I don't think I was terribly messy, but I didn't put much stock in tidy surroundings. Once I got to college, my true colors really came out. I roomed with a gal who was extremely neat, and it became clear immediately that I wasn't. I remember her actually taking tape and creating a line midway across the top of the vanity between her side and mine, so my mess wouldn't creep over to her organized side. She was mostly gracious, but I'm pretty sure I drove her crazy. The next place I lived, I had another roommate who kept things spotless, and again I had to work hard to do my part. Finally, my junior year, I moved in with a gal who was just like me, if not worse. Our one-bedroom apartment always looked like a bomb had gone off in it. One morning, while we were still in our beds, we heard the front door to our apartment open. We looked at each other, and then my roomie threw the covers over her head, thinking that it would be a cue for the unexpected visitor to go away. I started to get my defensive hackles up when all of a sudden we heard, "Ah! Oh! Ah!" groan. What in the world? I opened our bedroom door to find our landlady bleeding on the bathroom floor in a pile of our mess. She had tripped over our clutter in the hallway, veered off, and hit her head on the bathroom sink. Talk about embarrassing. She was there for some sort of routine maintenance check, which apparently we had been advised of in a mailed notice that was most certainly in the papers strewn all over the floor. If I had known of the upcoming visit by actually reading the paper, I would have cleaned up a bit. Really. Of course, the upside for my roomie and me was the assurance that if someone did decide to break into the apartment, the intruder would probably end up in a bloody heap before doing any harm. Fast forward to my first year of marriage. Jessie and I lived in the small apartment that my messy roomie and I had shared. She had moved out, and I had stayed. I tried to keep it nice for my husband. My biggest issue was papers and junk that all ended up on the dining room table, and I always had a messy kitchen. But still, in my opinion, it wasn't too terrible. My husband and I were stretching into our new lives together, learning about each other, and just enjoying the freedom that marriage brings. It wasn't until I got pregnant that things got ugly really fast. Along with the surprising and exciting news that I was pregnant, I also got incredibly sick. I threw up from morning to night, had terrible headaches from not getting enough food, and one evening ended up becoming so dehydrated that I was taken to the hospital and hooked up to an IV. I couldn't go to work, and I was in bed most of the day hitting myself in the head with the palms of my hands. Like that helped, wishing for a narcotic to knock me out for 3 months. No such narcotic arrived. When I would feel hungry or get a craving, I had just enough strength to half crawl to the kitchen, eat a few bites, throw up, and go back to bed. Jessie was a senior in college at the time, and when he would come home from class, the apartment was littered with bowls and cups that I had brought out but not put back in the kitchen. The place was a wreck, and I'm sure the smell wasn't too pleasant. My husband was carrying a full course load, plus an internship with a police department, so he not only had to study for his classes, but many times he was pulling overnight third-shift hours required for the internship. He was exhausted and overloaded, and I was exhausted and sick. He resented me for not taking the dishes to the kitchen, and I resented him for not understanding how terrible I felt with my pregnancy. Just the thought of moving made me queasy. He thought I was exaggerating.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?